Okay, tonight we're going to go ahead. Shalom, everyone. Tonight we're going to be speaking about the secret of the Hebrew letters. Since we know that the creation of the world is done through the speech, through God's speech, and we create reality through our speech, we have the power, as we know that man, when man was created, it says, Ve'aya ha'adam le'nefesh haya. And man was a living being. When God brought man into becoming a living being. So the Aramaic translation and explanation says, what is a living being? What does that mean? Leruach memalela, a speaking being. The quality of man over the animal is the fact that we're able to speak. And therefore, we're able to be quiet when we need to, hopefully. So, the Hebrew letters, which basically are the DNA of the creation of the world, the Hebrew letters, which these combinations of letters are not only combinations of letters, but Istakel be'oraita ubara alma, the Zohar teaches us that God looked into the Torah and the combination of letters, and He actually created this reality we call the world. We therefore have to understand that the world is much more than just what the eye meets. What the eye meets is physical matter. But it really matters only when you look at the essence of the matter that brings it into existence. There's a verse in chapter 119 of the Psalms of King David, Le'olam Adonai devarecha nitzav b'shamayim, forever God, your word stands in the heavens. Meaning that the word of God stands in the heavens, and in every living object, the DNA of the object that makes it, that is the channel through which the vitality of God brings it into existence, it's His name. What is a name? If your name, for example, is Shalom, and I say, Shalom, Shalom, so at that moment, I've called upon your essence. The name is the portal through which I'm able to reach your essence and bring it out. I call upon your name. Interestingly enough, how would you say this? I mean, maybe you speak Hebrew. So how would you say, I'm calling you in Hebrew? Korim lecha. I call you, ani kore lecha. But the word kore in Hebrew, to call, means something else. Vaikra. Vaikra, it means at the same time, likro, to read. So it's very interesting when we read the Torah, we're actually calling upon the name of God. What happens when I call you? When I call, at the moment that I call you and I say, Shalom, if your name is Shalom, what that's going to do is to bring you from where you are, and I'm going to draw you closer to me. So when I read the Torah, I'm actually drawing God closer to the world, closer to that reality, which is called the physical world. Right? So what we said is the following. The reading of the Hebrew letters, each one of them, the 22 Hebrew letters, it's interesting that we're learning this today because today was the 22nd of the month of Shvat in the Hebrew calendar. The 22 Hebrew letters have a power. Each one of them has a unique power. We know that in the Hebrew, the letters are numbers. There are no numbers in Hebrew. There's only letters. The letters themselves have a numerical value. The letter Aleph to the letter Yud is 1 to 10. After you go from 10, the next letters are going in tens from 20 to 100. And after you go to 100, the letters are going from 100 to 400. To show you a little the power of the Hebrew letters, it's interesting. We said there are 22 letters. And we know that at the beginning, when Moses, last week, in last week's Torah portion, came down with the tablets, the 10 Commandments, he originally broke the 10 Commandments. At the moment that he broke the 10 Commandments, the Talmud teaches us that there were 1,000 orot, 1,000 lights, which were shining from the head of Moses, which were resting upon his head, which suddenly were stopped, were taken away from him. So imagine a person has a brilliance, right? 1,000 lights that come out of him. And now that he broke the tablets, God said, that's it, I'm taking this light away from you. The only day of the week that we merit to re-experience the light, the 1,000 lights, is on Shabbat. On the holy day of Shabbat, from Friday night to Saturday night, we are enlightened. And obviously when you keep the Shabbat, that light is very special. The food tastes different. It has a special spice called Shabbat. The experience, the perspective you have of the world, the perception, you have of the world, the way you perceive yourself. So let's just, as an introduction, understand what does it mean 1,000 lights? Where do I see this reference to 1,000 lights on Shabbat? How many times do we pray a day? 3 times. Baruch Hashem, you're in the right place. I was scared somebody was going to say 5 times. 3 times a day. We pray 3 times a day. So, how many prayers do we pray throughout the whole week? How much? 21. Really?
More, you have also the kiddushin of the line.
No, I'm talking about the Amidah, the actual prayer, the service. Mincha.
22.
Why 22?
Because we are Musaf.
On Shabbat, we have an extra prayer, which is called the additional offering, the additional prayer, which is called Musaf. So how many prayers do we have in a week? 22. How many letters do we have? 22. Each one of the letters is another letter. Each one of the prayers, each one of the services is another letter. And therefore, every week we rebuild the code of creation through our prayers. We draw down these letters. So let's start. When is the first prayer of the week? Which one? Of what? Saturday night. You know that it says, Vayhi Erev, there was night. Vayhi Boker, there was day. And Yom Echad, day 1. The way a Jew looks at his day has nothing to do with midnight. It starts with the night before till the next evening. That's why Shabbat starts on Friday night. And it ends on Saturday late afternoon before the next night. So the first prayer of the evening service we pray the evening service, the morning service, and the afternoon service. The first one is going to be the letter Aleph in Hebrew. So you continue, the next one, Sunday morning, is going to be Bet, and which is the second Hebrew letter. And then you have the third prayer, which is going to be Sunday afternoon, and that's going to be Gimel. So if that's the case, we have 4 prayers on the last day of the week, which are for the 4 last Hebrew letters. What are these Hebrew letters? The Hebrew letters are the letter Kuf, the letter Resh, the letter Shin, and the letter Tav. What did we say? The 4 last letters represent hundreds. So this is how much?
100.
100. How much is this?
200.
200. Do I hear 300? Anybody in the room for 300? 300. Very good. Because the numerical value of the letter Kuf is 100. The numerical value of the letter Resh is 200. The numerical value of the letter Shin is 300. Brad, can I ask you to close this light, please? This one, just this one. Thank you. And the numerical value of... Better?
Too dark.
That's good? Is that good? And the numerical value of the last letter is 400. Okay. Do we have a doctor? No, do we have an accountant in the room? How much is that?
You know any Jewish is not good in math?
How much? 1,000. Oh, you got it. How much? Bolivares? 1,000. What did we say before? We said that on Shabbat, what happens on the Shabbat? On the Shabbat, the 1,000 lights which we lost are given back to us every Shabbat. So here we just see, just with the numerical value of the letters, how that happens every Shabbat.
How do you connect the 1,000 to the Shabbat 1,000 lights? How did you connect?
Very simple. Because on Shabbat we have 4 prayers. The 4 prayers. The 4 last prayers. And since we said we have 22 letters and 22 prayers starting from the beginning of the week, Saturday night, so the last 4 prayers are associated to the last 4 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. And the last 4 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. That's correct. It's each prayer is associated to another. No, each prayer of the week is associated to that position, that letter which is connected to it. Which means the first prayer is connected to Aleph. The next prayer Sunday morning is associated to Bet. So without having to go through all the Hebrew alphabets, you take the last 4 prayers are connected to the last 4 letters. Which are these letters? These ones. And these ones have a numerical value of 100 each. Each one has a numerical value of 100 plus 200 plus 300 plus 400, which Mr. Levy said brilliantly equals to 1,000.
Does that mean that the last one means in Chal Shabbat, the Shin is Musaf, the Resh Shacharit, and the Kuf is going to be the Friday night Shabbat?
That is correct.
But then the Kuf or the Resh, does it mean a word itself that is mixed to what she says or something with the lights or something? Like the Kuf, Resh, Shin?
Oh, does that form a word?
Yes. Or does each one represent any word somewhere there? Sure.
That's a great question. I don't know. I don't see any for now. So today, that was just an introduction to just show you a little how words, letters in the Hebrew alphabet have much more power than just being letters. And your name as well, which means that the way you spell your name, the name that your parents gave you, it says in the Ari Kadosh, in Kabbalah, it is thought that the name that you're given, it was a small prophecy. It's a small prophecy that your parents had. And that prophetic moment, so there's a question. Did your parents give you that name because this is who you are or this is who you are going to become, or this is basically the power of who you are. It's really all of them. The name really is a reflection of the essence. That's why when a person is in a state of faint, you call their name and you awaken them with their name. So today, sure, absolutely, you can ask any questions, by the way. It's not because we have a camera. You can ask, interrupt me, ask questions. This is a discussion. I just happen to be the main person discussing everything. That's all.
Okay, so how do you explain that Jewish people, we usually name our children on grandma's name, grandfather names, or Mendel, everybody Mendel? Explain to me. So if I give the name to empower a child or a personality that comes to the life, and then I call him on his grandfather.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question. Since I'm Jewish, just like you are, I'm going to answer a question with a question. Okay?
So I don't have an answer.
No, we're going to give you an answer to your question, obviously, but that question will hopefully answer your question. If you have a code which says 1, 2, 4, 5, 7. Let's say this is some genetic code I just made up. And then I have a code which says 5, 8, 4, 5, 7. Is this the same code? No, it's not the same code. But they do have this and this. Both of them are similar. So the fact that, for example, I have a son which is named after the Lubavitcher Rebbe, which his name is Menachem Mendel, and there's at least another 1,000 people that did the same thing as I, the difference is that he is maybe Menachem Mendel, but this one has this father and mother, and this one has this father and mother. It's a chain.
I'm talking about numbers.
It's more than numbers.
No,
A
I'm
name.
talking about the name that you said, and don't talk about physical and DNA, and obviously everybody.
We're talking about spiritually speaking.
Correct.
What happens is like this. Why, for example, did I name my son after different tzaddikim, different righteous people? Because I wanted to be able to have that power which is in the name of somebody that realized his name, was able to come to a level where he maximized the potential of his name. You know, it's very interesting. Our sages teach us in the Mishnah of the ethics of our fathers, Pirkei Avot, they say there are 3 crowns. There's the crown of priesthood. A person which is a Kohen has a special crown. There's a crown of royalty. A person that comes from royalty, special crown. There's the crown of Torah, which is accessible to all of us. Even I'm not a Kohen, and I'm not not royalty. Of course I am. Till I come home. No, just joking. That's when I discover that I'm royalty, when I come home. And then I realize my wife is a queen as well. So then you have the crown of Torah. The crown of Torah is accessible to every single one of us. We study Torah, we're able to grow in our connection with God and have that. But our sages say that even though these 3 crowns are great, there is a crown which crowns the crowns. And what crown is that? The crown of a good name. The crown of a good name means that I have a name. What is a name? A name is only a point of reference which is external to my essence. My essence and my name. My name is only like a little button, just like we tried to do in the elevators here today when we came to the 8th floor, but the concierge did it for us. He pressed a button. And next thing you know, boom, you were at the 8th floor. the button you press, and the 8th floor, and the 807 apartment has not. So this is only a reference point. That's all it is. You can't say that the number is the actual, but it's the gateway that's going to get me there. If I told you the number 770, for example, so right away, look at your reaction. Chabad House, 770 Eastern Parkway, the Lubavitcher Rebbe's headquarters. So here we have a phenomenon which is very interesting. It's impossible to hear 770 and not to associate it with the essence of what 770 is. Which means we have the crown of a good name. We have the essence, which is the crown, and we have the good name. We have the emanation of the name. It's maximized the potential. So when we choose a name that's already belonged to somebody, that's a tzaddik, that's a holy person, we basically are associating and giving a certain power to the individual. Does that mean that a child is not going to have his individuality? Of course he will, because he comes from a different set of parents, and he comes from that different set of parents has a very special, different type of individuality. Just like if you're going to say wine, a Cabernet Sauvignon. Let's take one type of wine. You have tens and tens of Cabernet Sauvignon. Because they're called Cabernet Sauvignon, they all taste the same? No. There's a Cabernet Sauvignon that has an older soul, an older taste, a better taste, a richer taste. And you have a Cabernet Sauvignon that sells for $6 in Publix, in the kosher section, obviously. So, you could have the same name, but still have a separate identity. Concerning the second question, you name after a grandparent. So in general, we do not want to name someone after a person that died in a tragic circumstance. And if we do name, we're going to add a name to that name. And we'll explain why. And I'll explain to you right now. Because there is something very special with adding a name. When you add a name, for example, if I have different letters, right? I have the letter Aleph in Hebrew. I'm going to make it nice here. And I have the letter Bet. Okay, I'm sorry, my artistic talents, okay, are not great. So the letter Aleph itself is one entity. The letter Bet itself is another entity. Within this letter Aleph itself, there are 3 entities. There is a Yud, there is another Yud, and there is the letter Vav. So we'll get there in a second. So the letter Aleph itself is composed, but forms one entity, which is called Aleph. Just like we are composed, we have Baruch Hashem, arms and legs and nose and eyes and so on, and a head and a heart. We're composed, but we are one entity. The same thing with the Bet. The Bet is 3 Vavs according to one opinion. It's another entity. What happens the moment I'm going to do a wedding? I'm going to marry the Aleph with the Bet. It's going to form a new entity called Av, which means in Hebrew, father.
But what is it? Isha v'Bal?
No. That's beautiful. I never thought about it, but that could be very nice. But in this, so Aleph Bet, forms now a new entity. It's the power of synergy, like I say to couples when they get married. Don't follow these psychology books that tell you 1 + 1 is 1. Ridiculous. Which means I'm half of a person, you're half a person, together we're one. No. 1 + 1, as I write in my book, which is going to be published soon, called To Be or To Become, Develop the Power of Positive Perspective, coming soon on Amazon. This was an unpaid commercial. 1 + 1 is 3. There is this entity called Aleph, the husband. There is this entity called Bet, the wife. And together there's a new power called the power of synergy. I can lift 50 pounds, you can lift 50 pounds. Together we can lift 200 pounds. But 50 + 50 is 100? You're right. But together the power of synergy makes that we're higher. And that's why it says, Zachar u'nekeva bara otam vayvarech otam Elokim. God created male and female, and He blessed them, which means the blessing comes from the two opposites coming together and completing each other. So when, God forbid, somebody died of a tragic situation, or God forbid a person has a sickness, what do? We add a name. Which means if his name was, for example, David, and now I have to add a name, I'm going to add the name Chaim. It's not that I added the name Chaim, and now it's Chaim David. You could look at it two ways. I've added a name. Therefore, the channels for life and blessing, to draw blessing down in this person's vitality, are bigger. Now he has more letters. That's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is that now he is no longer David. David doesn't exist. He is Chaim David. But Chaim David is not David. It's not even David with Chaim on top of it. It's a new entity called Chaim David. The same thing with our letters. When you marry two letters together, when you form a word, the words have power. And the kavanah, the intention behind the words, the vitality which is in the words, in the letters, you draw it down at the moment you speak it. That's why it is known in psychology today, and it has been proven in biology, that we can affect matter with our words. Words matter.
Even in Buddhism.
Well, let's go to the source. Judaism. Why do I need to go to?
I'm saying that.
100%.
The thoughts also. Everything is.
Let's start with speech, because that's what's more tangible. If you look at speech today, you can make this experiment at home. Can I give you an experiment you can do at home? You take 3 cups of water. 1 cup of water. You say nice, beautiful, love, care, unity, and so on and so forth. You take another cup of water and you take any word that you will find in a rap song and you repeat it. You afterwards take some cotton, put seeds, and you water with the 2 cups of water. The one which you spoke the nice words to will grow much faster and will grow nicer. The other one will be a little chaotic. If you want to take it another level, at the moment you say a blessing on the water, we know that we say blessing, we bless the water. Are we blessing the water? We're blessing God that brought the water into existence, where by doing so, we recognize the vitality where it comes from. Therefore, we are connecting what's below with its source above. And they've done that. And it's magical. When you look at the waters under the eye of a microscope, 20 years, It's that name which is inscribed in the stone that permits the soul to be able to still be connected to the body which is interred. And that's why we put a tombstone, a marker, even at the time of passing of a person. So every letter has an energy. The words we speak have energy. The Hebrew language has a very potent, powerful energy. To go back to what you're saying before, no, it's not. I'm going to tell you when it's strong. I'm just coming to that point right now. There are two types of letters. In Kabbalah and Chassidut, it is explained. There is what we call otiyot shebemachshava, otiyot shebedibur. There are the letters of speech, and there is the letters of thought. The letters that come in the mind. Because before I express myself and say a word, choose a word, before there's a whole selection of letters and words that I could be using in my mind. So, instead of saying round, I could say circular. Instead of saying nice, I could say another word. The choice of words. So at the beginning, when I'm able to actually connect my thoughts and my words and put them in sync, which means my kavanah, my intention, and the expression, which means intention inside, intention, expression outside, and I'm able to bring them in a perfect fusion, at that moment, I have a power in my mouth. And that's why it says, דברים היוצאים מן הלב נכנסים אל הלב ופועלים פעולתם. The words that come from the heart penetrate the heart and actually act and actually transform. That's why you have people that can give 3-hour speeches, very interesting, did not touch me at all. And there are people that you meet for 1 minute. You meet the Rebbe, for example. I had that zchut, that merit. You meet a very holy person, a person that's his essence and his expression are one, and they say 2 words, and they've just transformed you. Why? Because at that moment the thought and the expression are one. It's true, there is a power in thought, absolutely. איפה שמחשבתו של אדם שם הוא נמצא, the Talmud teaches us that where the thought of a person is, that's where he is.
It also says מחשבה יוצרת מציאות. Our thoughts create our own reality.
Correct. And that's why it's interesting, because when we make Havdalah, when we say the blessings at the moment that the Shabbat ends, we say first the blessing on the wine, the mouth. Then we say the blessing on the spice, the nose. Then we say the blessing on the fire, right, the eyes. And then we say the blessing on the knowledge and consciousness to be able to separate between the weekdays and Shabbat, and between darkness and light, and between etc. Why? Because with your mouth you can reach a certain level, you can smell maybe further, with your eyes you can see further, with your mind you can be in one blink of an eye, you can be on the other side of the earth. And tzaddikim have that power to actually create reality. But before, it's a process. And actually, correct, when I say tzaddikim, I mean every single one of us that has a true intention. What is a tzaddik? A tzaddik, a righteous person, is somebody that reached a level of sincerity and connection to his essence, which is godly. And since our essence is a part of the Creator, therefore we have a creating power inside of us, every single one of us. A tzaddik is somebody that came to a level where there's no dichotomy, there's no separation, there's no split personality between what I do and who I am. When you're able to be true, and that's why you have people which are very simple, but they are true. For example, in Morocco, the Jews that lived in Morocco, a lot of Jews were not necessarily the wisest people of Torah, but they had a simple faith which was so powerful that the simplest Jew could do a miracle. The simplest Jew sometimes could see and perceive situations before they happened. Why? Because when you have that simplicity of the heart, there's no barrier. I am what I express. I am what it's one thing. The problem of the world is called Alma de Shikra, a world of lies. The world lies to your face, and that's why in Hebrew the word olam, which means world, comes from the word he-elem, which means concealment. Which means the world by its existence conceals the true vitality and life force, which is godliness. The Talmud teaches us in the Talmud of Sanhedrin, a person has to say every day, Chayav Adam Lomar, for me, the world was created for me. What does it mean the world was created for me? The concealment was created for me to reveal God in the concealment of the world. How do I do that? I do that by connecting myself to the Hebrew letters, connecting myself to the study of Torah, connecting myself to the prayers, which are the codes, the building blocks of this reality. And that's why a tzaddik is able to change the reality. For example, we have an example in the Talmud. There's a great rabbi that was very poor by the name of Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa. Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa was so poor that one day his wife did not have oil to light the Shabbat candles. The only thing she had was vinegar. So she said, what do we do? He said, no problem. Pour vinegar in the cups and light. But vinegar is not oil. So he said, Mi Shy Amar, la shemen sheyadlik. The same creator who said oil should light will say vinegar should light. Basically, what did he do? You take the word chometz in Hebrew, which means vinegar, and you take the word shemen, which means oil. The oil has a certain vitality which comes from its source. You basically connect this to another source and you draw down the vitality. It just becomes a vessel, a channel to be able to receive it. To receive this vitality and be able to light. And it lit. Basically, words are very important. The more pure my thoughts are, the more connected my speech is to my thoughts, and there's no separation. Like Maimonides says that if you make a promise, If you make a promise, you have to keep your promise. What happens if a person had a thought of a promise? Does he have to keep it? Maimonides says if you have a thought of a promise, you don't have the obligation to keep it. But it would be wise to keep it. I'm going to share with you a story. Rabbi Manis Friedman, a very, very popular rabbi, his father, of blessed memory, lived in Borough Park, if I'm not mistaken. And he wrote a letter to the Rebbe saying, I would like to move near you in the district of Crown Heights. The Rebbe did not answer him. Weeks later, he gets a letter from the Rebbe saying, giving him a blessing to move to Crown Heights. And at the bottom of the letter, the Rebbe writes to him, Tehillim, Psalms, ? What happened? Mr. Friedman lived through the Holocaust. He made a promise that if God would save him from this inferno, he would read the whole book of Psalms every day of his life. That day that he got the letter of the Rebbe, there was a fire, or there was a flood in the factory that he owns. He was busy all day with that, and he did not read the Psalms that day. That's the day, at the end of that day, that he wrote the letter from the Rebbe saying Tehillim. You made a promise. Every day that you fulfill this promise, you are fulfilling it. Today, there was something missing. There was a hole somewhere. And I saw that hole. So I'm asking you, Tate. The power of words is that it creates a reality for me too. There's a woman that once went to see one of the great rabbis because her son was sick. The rabbi said that she should donate 12 candles to the synagogue, to the study hall. At the time, it's a big mitzvah to pay for electricity in a synagogue and a place where people study Torah. So, the way you did that was by offering candles. She offered the candles. She said, no problem, I'll do it. By the time she walked back home, an hour or 2 hours away, her son was fully cured. A month went by, her son becomes sick again. God forbid. She runs back to the rabbi and said, Rabbi, you gave me a blessing. What happened? He got sick again. To this, the rabbi asked her, you promised to give candles. Did you give them? She said, actually, I forgot. I came home and I saw he was already well. And therefore, I didn't think there was a need for me to give them. Said, God already gave you in advance. The moment you made that promise, you created that reality as if you already did it. And therefore, God granted him help right away. But when you never fulfilled your commitment, that's what happened. The check bounced. So basically, everything around us, you look at this table. In Hebrew, the word table, shulchan, receives its vitality from the word shulchan. The word rakia, the heavens, receives its reality from these letters, the word light. But what happens is that every one of these words, for example, when God says, may there be light, which is the letter, or the word all, there are different dimensions in which that word translates itself. It translates itself in the way it's written in the Torah. This is the way it's written in the Torah. Aleph, Vav, Resh. It translates itself in light, which could be the artificial light that we have here. It translates itself into sunlight. It translates itself into brilliance. All this word encompasses all these realities at different levels. What does that look like? It's like me going into a studio and speaking in the microphone and saying, Shalom. On the camera, Shalom is going to be a movement of my lips mixed with the power of air that comes out of my lungs. On the screen, it's going to be something like Shalom. On the sound, it's going to be Shalom. It's what we're going to hear. God speaks one word. That word now becomes the trunk to the tree of different realities. It becomes the channel through which every level, every dimension will receive its vitality. When we study Torah and connect ourselves to the Hebrew letters in their source where they were given, when we pray and connect our lips, so to say, with the lips of God, which express these words, kiss me of the kisses of his lips, like King Solomon says when he alludes to the relationship that is between God and man, at that moment, we're drawing directly from the source. And that's why you have holy rabbis that are able to live on 3 pieces of food and have a tremendous vitality just from the studying. As King Solomon says, the wisdom itself brings a person to life. While you have people that all day long are involved in matters of the world, and instead of having vitality, they might have a lot of knowledge of what's happening in the world. They lose their vitality. They become more depressed and more stuck. So today, to conclude, what we learned is that every one of the Hebrew letters, our names, have power. Your words have power. And if you're going to cleanse your thoughts, the way you fill your mind is going to be with holy thoughts. Today, thank God, so many websites, Chabad.org, Jewish.tv, and whatever subjects you want to study, whether of any level within the eyes of Torah, science and Torah, and so on and so forth, whatever is interesting to you, psychology and Torah, coaching and Torah, whatever it is, health and Torah, you're able to connect to that deeper dimension, which is the soul of all these realities. And once you connect to the soul, suddenly you're going to feel a certain vitality, a perspective which is of another dimension. And then, slowly but surely, you connect to the letters, you connect to the words at a much, much deeper level. And suddenly the creator within you, which is God himself, which is a part of you, is able to create a new reality. And once you elevate yourself and you refine your speech, you refine your vision, you refine your thoughts, and suddenly you are surrounded by a new, holier, more elevated reality. God bless. No problem. Go ahead.
About Kabbalah,
yes.
They invited me to join some classes, and many years I want to do that. And I knew that I need to wait until I'm 40, which I am now. because of the Zohar, if the wisdom years, when you get your 40s. And I want to understand, maybe in the perspective of you as a religious man, what you're saying about that, because a lot of people are not Jewish necessarily, and they join Kabbalah even 30. Why we Jewish can only after 40, after the Binah, and if we touch the Zohar, you cannot go back. Nagata Nasata. They say you start, you need to continue. Do you have anything to say about it, or it's not related?
It's not about being 40 years old, it's about after 40 years of learning Torah.
No. It's a no.
There are many prerequisites.
40 years, when you are after 40, it means you have the Binah, you can touch it. Whether you're religious, you touch the Torah, you didn't touch the Torah.
I have a call. I have to go. No.
Kabbalah.
I think I have a call. I have to go. Okay, so we'll get.
Am I mistaken?
Okay, so
Kabbalah, you need to learn all
the,
life Torah.
so I think. Do you live in this building?
Me?
Yes.
No.
If we have another class in the coming weeks, would you come?
I would.
B'ezrat Hashem, that's great. Bli neder, with no problem.
However, Bezrat Hashem bli neder.
Yes, without.
Shebach Shemo.
Yes. So. You have a question? So let's get to you, because that's a very, it's a more complex question than just, I don't want to just brush it off with a quarter of an answer. Okay? It's a much deeper question than what you even think you're asking. Okay? So, yes. One second, but I think she had a question first. I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead.
No, just what if you feel like your name is not powerful in the Jewish religion?
Okay. So, what if you feel your name is not powerful?
Could I just have a comment? I'm slightly jealous that converts get to pick their name.
Really?
We get stuck with the name our parents gave us.
You
You can add a name. You don't have to be stuck.
She can add a name. If you're not
Add a name.
Okay, you have to be very careful with adding names. And why? Because you have a certain, I don't want to say destiny, but your name drives you in a certain way. You understand that there, as nice as a Lamborghini can be, and as rough as a Range Rover can be, the terrains that they're going to be able to drive in are not the same. They could be the best cars, but this is the best car for this terrain, this is the best car for this terrain. So if suddenly, for example, I'm a Lamborghini, or you know what, I'm a Range Rover, and I decide suddenly that I want to be a Lamborghini, so I'm going to add myself Lamborghini Range Rover. So at that moment, instead of actually giving me more power, it's possible that I got a little more power for a certain area of my life, but I just lost an amazing power that was really the goal of my life. So you have to be careful. Sometimes adding a name changes the mazal, changes the purpose, the power of a person. So sometimes so even adding a name, you have to be careful.
add the letter.
Even add every letter, as I told you before, it's a new reality. So just to go 1 second. I want to go back to that question.
It's gonna come to you anyway.
I would just answer that question. I want to tell you there's a way.
But if you wanted to change your reality.
Okay, but 1 second. Very good. Thank you. Yeah. Let's say you're married to Yosef, and you know what? I really want to change your reality, but I want to keep you as my husband. I'll name you Yaakov now, right? So just like the story of the priest that convinced the rabbi for $10,000 to convert, and that they needed money, so they went and they converted. Friday night, the priest walks by the rabbi's house, and he sees he's eating fish. That's a Friday night eating fish. That's a Jewish thing to do. What are you doing, Rabbi? You're eating gefilte fish. That's Jewish. You converted. He says, what are you talking about? you are chicken, you are chicken. Right? You could call it a different thing, it's still the same thing. So, one second. I'm losing it. You have to be, you don't know exactly where that's going to guide you, will put you in a situation. Sometimes a person thinks, oh, I'm going to choose this name, it's going to be just fine. But what happens if with this name, the lifespan of a person is 10 years less? You understand what I'm saying? Only holy, very, very special rabbis of a real holy nature, right, are able to do such a thing. There's actually a video on YouTube where you see different women that don't have a Jewish name, and they go by the Rebbe, and the Rebbe gives them a Jewish name. But incredible as it can be, the Rebbe takes a little of the non-Jewish name, or the first letter, or something like that, and from there builds and gives them a Jewish name. So, just to go back to your name, if you think that sometimes, it's not a question of getting a new name, it's a question of empowering your name. If I know what my name is, and what it means, and what is the capacity behind my name, and I start focusing on that when I look at my name, suddenly I draw a new energy to that name. I'm not saying there's some people that have, I know for example a student I had that her mother's name was Shmuela. When she came by the Rebbe, this mother, the Rebbe said, it's not a good name. You have to, right? So obviously it's something to discuss with the right type of person that doesn't have an interest. What?
But why you said it's not good in terms of what the combination of the letter?
Everything.
Shmuela is like
no, because
no.
no. So first of all, you have
Why
to.
you said
There's two things. There's two things. Sometimes it's not a question the name itself. We're not going to make now a rule that whoever's name is Shmuela, that's it. The Rebbe says no. It was an individual thing. There needs to be a atama. There needs to be a not connection. Atama is no connection. There needs to be a
matching.
A synergy, you could say. It's, even that word is not. There needs to be a certain wholeness, whatever it is, between the name and the person's soul. Right? They need to be matching. They need to be connected, complete one another. So for each person, there's a soul that's like this, like that. Even the face of a person, right? The face of a person, the way the forehead is, the nose, the eyes. There's a whole Zohar that explains in Parashat Yitro, last week's parasha, exactly how just by looking at the face of a person, you can catch the essence of who that person is. So you have people that when you look at them, or you look at their name, they have a very negative thing. But really, these same people, for example, it says there's certain people which are, no, Sammy and Judy, close your ears. There's some people which are born under the sign of Ma'adim, of red, of blood. So these people end up being either Mohalim, people that perform circumcision, or Shochatim, people that slaughter animals. I'm sorry, just 1 second. I have just a meeting tonight with a couple that's here from out of town. Just want to see what time it is. Oh, it's okay, we're good. Good. So, you see that even a person that has that negative thing, he's under the star of blood, so to say, right? In a positive way, it could be used in a certain way. Tonight, I had a nurse that was in my house, and she told us something very interesting. She was speaking about needles and scared of needles. And she said, "Look, when I was 9 years old, my younger sister completely opened her knee or whatever it is. You could see the skin, the white, and everything. And she fell, and all the pebbles were inside." And I said to my mother, "Stay away." I rinsed everything, I put it back, we went to the hospital, and she works at it's not Joe DiMaggio now. It's called Nicholas Memorial. No, not Memorial. In Coral Gables.
Oh, children's hospital.
The children's hospital. Now it's called Nicholas's Children's Hospital. Nicholas Children's Hospital, and she works in the trauma unit, and she loves it. She just this is her life. So here, a person that's attracted by blood becomes a lifesaver. So you see that the same thing, which could have been a murderous person that's attracted by blood, it was used in a positive way. So the same name, with a new light, with a new inspiration, can really take, because every name has power. Any other question to conclude?
There is something that I know in Judaism about names, and you can read about it online, we have access. Yes, the combination of the names, sometimes the letter Tam. I know a few people, I read about that there is some letters that closes the previous letter. Then, but again, as above, as I said,
so I'm just going to explain. I'm going to explain. This is what we just.
About that to the right.
This is what we just studied in the Talmud. That there are letters which are final letters, and there are letters which are letters the same way. There are 5 letters like this, which are final letters, and letters which are in the middle of a word. When they're in the middle of the word, they're called open. When they're at the end of a word, they're called closed. So some people, right? What you're saying is that basically sometimes you have names which have a closed letter, but even a closed letter, you have to understand that before I told you that we only go up to 1,000, if you remember. Now I'm going to give you a little. We only go to up to 400. So I'm going to give you a little secret. If you look at the Hebrew letters, the letter Chaf, Sofit, Kamina Petz. The letter Mem, Na Kamina. The letter Nun Sofit, Kamina Petz. The letter Pe, Tzadik, and the letter Tzadik. Actually, we finished at 400, so this is 500, 600, 700, 800, 900. So actually, these letters, which are closed letters, are actually very powerful letters. So even when it says, oh, it's closed, maybe your mazal is closed and all this thing, you have to be very, very, very careful, because it doesn't mean that. Sometimes things are closed because it's so powerful, so it's harder to reveal. But if you do reveal it, it actually is much more powerful. So that's why I never put your... Yes, go ahead.
How do you reveal it? Sorry.
That's a great question.
Okay. I know, I'm sorry.
No.
Self-work.
Okay, so I would say the best way to reveal it is to continue coming to the classes. And I think our next class is on Monday night. It might not. It's going to be on Collins Avenue. It might not be here, but Brad, you have the phone numbers of everybody in this room.
What is your name?
Brandy.
In Hebrew.
I'm not sure.
Well, ask your mom. What's her Hebrew name?
So now you want to change your name? You don't have it.
No, I do have a Jewish name, but I'm not sure. I forgot what it is. But no, just someone in the Jewish.
Is it a Yiddish name? Braindle? No. It sounds. It's possible. Anyways, whatever it is, but we can definitely discuss it in private.
Yes.
So you have the phone numbers of everyone. So let's do the following. Whoever's host.
Question?
Yes.
How about if somebody gets a name and you go and you shortcut the name, like when you start to build it?
The nickname.
What the powerful of this kind of thing?
So it's a little problem. Sometimes giving a nickname to somebody it's like not giving the full value to it's not, you don't give the full power. You're taking a little away from the full power of a person sometimes, and that's, some say. So now you're going to have another question. What happens if you have a child that has 2 names? Do you have to name
The
them?
religious people call him all the names.
No, so not always. So I'm going to tell you, for example, what does it mean to be called as long, according to halakha, according to Jewish law, as long as in a period of 30 days, that person has been called at least once with his full name, then it's okay. That's his name.
When his mother's married.
Huh?
When his mother.
Oh, yes. Okay, so then that could be every second day. So, what I would like to invite Brad to do, first of all, thank you, Brad. It's amazing. God bless you. By the way, I know that it's a few months before, but we had what, you recorded this whole time?